meeting of the City Council. Members of the will provide an opportunity to address the council during public hearings and during action items. Please speak into the microphone located at the podium. State your name and address. If you have a petition or other information pertaining to your subject, please present it to the City Secretary. State law generally prohibits the council from discussing or taking any action on any issue not included on the agenda. But if appropriate, the council may schedule a topic for future discussion or refer the matter to staff. No personal attacks on council members or city staff will be allowed. The mayor may call a point of order to stop the personal attacks. If an individual continues to personally attack elected official or staff member in a meeting, they may be fired. Call this meeting to order by the invocation. Anna, please.
Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this good day, this gift from you, and I pray that we can do as such. Pray, Heavenly Father, that we remember that you have called us to do justice and to love us. Thank you for this beautiful city in which we are able to live. We are especially thankful for these representatives who have come together to make our ordinances and our laws and set rules here and to deliberate and to solve problems. Heavenly Father, speak with them as they do this. And Lord, we thank you for the citizens who have come tonight. Dear Heavenly Father, they're coming for and that we understand. Heavenly Father, we pray that we will be able to both agree and disagree with one another and still call friends and neighbors in our community. Please be with us through this meeting. And will be done in our lives.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag and pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you all very much. Okay, City Secretary, do we have a quorum?
We do have a quorum, and we have an excused absence for Councilor Fitzgerald, and the notice was posted at 10 a.m. on March 29th, 2019.
Okay. And today we have some recognitions and quite a few birthdays. And I wish everybody that's on this list a happy birthday. And they are as follows: Valerie Catani, Dominique Rubio, Michael Macias, Gabriel Guerrero, Akeem Jackson, Eddie Molina, Adelina Beal, and Antonio Ibarra, and Giovanni Gonzalez. And also have a proclamation for this month. It's Safe Digging Month. Whereas thousands of times each year, underground infrastructure in Texas is damaged by those who do not have underground lines located prior to digging, resulting in service interruptions, environmental damage, and threats to public safety. And whereas in 2005, the Federal Communications Commission designated 811 to provide excavators and homeowners a simple number to contact utility operators to request the location of underground lines for intended digging sites. And whereas the Damage Prevention Council of Texas, a state-driven organization dedicated to the prevention of damage to underground facilities in all 254 counties, promote the national 811 notification system in effort to reduce these damages. And whereas damage prevention is a shared responsibility by using safe digging practices, persons living and working in the city of Alpine and Bishop County can save time and money and help keep our infrastructure safe and connected. Now, therefore, I, Dennis Rogers, Mayor of the City of Alpine, Texas, do hereby proclaim on behalf of the City of Alpine, the Damage Prevention Council of Texas, the month April 2019 as Alpine Safe Digging Month. and encourage excavators and homeowners throughout the city and Bishop County to always call 811 for digging. Safe digging is no accident. In witness for up, I do hereby set my hand and cause the seal of the city of Alpine to be affixed on this the second day of April 2019. Best Ramos, Mayor City of Alpine. And we have experienced a lot of issues with damage.
There.
Yes.
Randy Guzman is here to receive.
Oh, okay, he's gonna go to him next. Okay. All right, Randy, you better come up then. Sure. And Randy works a lot with the guests behind in charge of it, so he ought to know about cable locates, right? Sure. Okay, all right, appreciate it, sir. Yeah, we've had some cut telephone lines this year, some lasting outages up to 24 hours. So that's because of lack of cable locates. Moving forward, a strong urge. You see anybody digging in or around where there's telephone lines, gas lines, water lines, or electric, please call people. Okay, thank you all very much. And we'll move on. I don't have a report. City manager.
I do not have a report.
Okay, public hearings. Public hearing to obtain citizens' views and comments concerning ordinance 2019.03.01 and ordinance of the city of Alpine, Texas, amending chapter 94 traffic and vehicles of the code of ordinance, city of Alpine, Texas, to require a fee for requests that police escort service providing that this ordinance shall be cumulative, providing a severity clause, providing the penalty clause, providing for publication in the official newspaper, and providing the effective date. And B, public hearing to obtain ordinance 2019-04-01 and ordinance of the city of Alpine, Texas, amending chapter 18 building and building regulations of the code of ordinances of the city of Alpine, Texas, by adding the new article 10, contractor registration, to provide for the registration of contractors and setting fees for the registration of contractors, providing this ordinance should be cumulative, providing a penalty clause, providing a penalty clause, providing for publication in the official newspaper, and providing effective date. And moving to item 6. Yes, sir. Oh, I'm sorry. Is there any questions? Yes, sir. Yeah. I didn't see you in the bag. I'm sorry.
I'm Lance Jarrett. I'm with Jarrett Gordon Paving. I'm from Fort Davis, but we have a yard over here in Alpine, and I do a lot of business here in Alpine. So my first question is on this first one about the escort. Does that include oversized overweight loads that have got to go through town? And the city wants us to have an escort. So how are we going to get a bill to do that? Or are we, because most of the time we can't call ahead to have somebody meet us. We have to wait till we get to the edge of town, then call, sit there and wait until somebody shows up and then go through town. So I'm just wondering if y'all are going to require a fee, how's it going to work? I mean, how am I going to send my guys with some money, or have we thought about that part of it?
Yes, APD will fill out the bill and then send it. Well, I'm sorry. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So that's my biggest question is, and how much is this fee going to be? I mean, it's already hard enough as it is to get through town waiting. I mean, because sometimes we wait anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half for the escort because, there's not enough cops to go around as it is. So they've got to pull off and do whatever they're doing. So, it's a difficult situation to begin with. And this is the only town in this area that requires us to do this. We blow through Fort Davis, Marfa, Fort Stockton, Pecos. I mean, you have the permit, so it's gonna make it even more of a pain to come through town if we're gonna be starting to add fees on top of everything else. So that's my first comment on that part. Then on this D, I mean, I'm not really sure what you're meaning, wanting to register with the city. Or is, I mean, are we talking about those of us that are contractors? If we intend on doing business within the city limits, are y'all going to require us to register with the city in order to be able to do business within the city or for the city? And if you start making us register and start putting fees on us in order to do business here, I mean, you're just, to me, you're punishing the people who live here. It's already, I called several contractors this morning to talk about this, and we're all under the same mindset as of late. Most of us avoid working within the city limits already because it is so difficult to work with the city services. So if we can avoid it, we do. But if we do work within the city, it costs way more than if I go out here to Sunny Glen or I go over here to Sarah Lorana to Double Diamond. It used to be more expensive for somebody to do work out there than it was here. Now it costs you more money if you live in the city because of all of the stuff that we have to go through to do it. It's getting extremely difficult to be a contractor in this town. And we're starting to go down a slippery slope here because every time I turn around and I look in the paper, there's another ordinance hammering us. We want you to expect you to do this. And I don't understand it. I didn't realize that all of us were so bad that everybody has to watch over us like this. So that's my comments there. When y'all discuss this and think about this, who is this really benefiting? I mean, and what is really the purpose in this? Because I mean, I'm not seeing it myself. It's just costing the people that we should be trying to help out more because we just keep adding more big city stuff to our little town. And I don't live in a big city, and this is the reason why I don't, because I don't want to have to do this kind of stuff. So that's my comments on that. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Caleb Mack, Ward 2. I'm a journeyman plumber. I am licensed by the state. I pay a fee to the state every year. I'm a little confused as to why, or the exact wording. Frankly, if my wife is staying in Airbnb, she's a contractor. Frankly, is the city council going to register as a contractor? I mean, y'all are following rules and y'all are receiving remittance for your time. So, on top of that, we do business over a handshake in this town. There aren't contracts exchanging hands. I just don't understand why this city would need to register folks, except to put them on a list of approved contractors. Fortunately, the business I work with, does not need any advertisement and does not really wants to respect its privacy. If that becomes an issue, don't put the name on the list. And honestly, I just, it's just going to get passed on to the citizens. I mean, and it's just going to keep, it's already expensive enough as it is to bring in material out here and to build anything out here. You might as well be building on the moon in some cases. So, this is just another spiraling cost of building out here. So, I really just don't see the point in registering some people and not others. Now, if you want every person that stacks groceries at the grocery store to register as a contractor, great. All right, let's put it all on a level playing field, make it cost more to work. That's the way the direction this town's going. I don't see it lasting that long. Thank you for your time.
Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to the consent agenda. Minutes, financial reports, department written reports, board appointments, etc. Notice is given to the public. The following items are routine and administrative nature. Council will furnish with background support material on each item and or has been discussed at a previous meeting. All items will be acted upon by one vote, thus be discussed separately unless requested by city council member. In which the event, the item or items will be withdrawn for individual consideration and is no sequence after the items not require a separate discussion of the acted upon. The remaining items will be adopted by one vote. City manager.
Mayor, item A is approved minutes of the city council meeting on March 19th, 2019. Item B is approval of resolution 2019-0404, documenting the intent by council on the March 19th, 2019 meeting to rename the ball field at Centennial Park for Mr. Bell and item C is approval of resolution 2019-0403. The city of Alpine will support and work with the leisure and outdoor recreation program in the Department of Kinesiology and Human Resources at Sulawesi State University in developing park relations service programs.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve the consent agenda as written.
Okay, is there a second? Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. All those like sign, motion carries. Yes, sir.
Honorable Mayor, requesting that item number 7, executive session, I move that we move the executive session to the end of the meeting for today's agenda.
Okay, motion's been made and second. Any discussion? Yes, sir.
So the only discussion is Ron Hollowfield asked that we do it early. And that's the reason I got moved up a little bit, is that his request. He's an extended amount of time that we council will be the rest of the make sure we get sufficient time. So that's what.
Right. Okay. No discussion.
My only response to that would be that when we look at back at the previous meeting agendas, it is true that we spent quite a bit of time and up to 2 hours at some point on executive sessions. But at this time, I just can't see why we should go into it when we have an extensive items on the agenda still to discuss, and having our residents having to sit for maybe an extensive executive session, and then having to wait out there, and then having to come back in, continue the meeting, and then maybe it should be about the rest of the meeting.
Okay. Any more discussions? Yes, sir.
So the only thing I would suggest then is we agree now that if we're going to go past 9 o'clock, that resolution is passed as part of this, so we're automatically.
Any more discussion? Okay, all those in favor, raise your right hand.
Just making sure we're going to move item 7 to later. And at the same time, we are passing a resolution now, and the meeting will extend past 9 p.m. this evening to the time it takes to move.
Okay. So, all those in favor, move it back to order to regular. Okay, everybody, those opposed? None, it moves back to the regular position in the agenda. Okay. Let's go ahead and move on to the city council reserves with action. Sorry. Number 9, information or discussion items. Provide an update. That's yours, Mr. Steve.
Yeah. So this is all provide an update on the Brewster County Assessment District Board, including potential changes to the fiscal year of the board, with no planned financial impact of tax increases. There were a couple items in your package. One was a letter from Denise Flores, which talks about the potential for changing the Brewster County Assessment District fiscal year was to, instead of starting on the 1st of October, start on the 1st of January in New York. We've had extensive discussion about this at the board, and the rationale behind it is all of the state tax laws tied to a calendar year as opposed to a typical fiscal year. We asked that as part of this, we send a letter out to all the 7 entities that the Brewster County Appraisal District Board supports. One is to provide notice, and that's what the letter from Denise Force is. And as part of that, we included what a budget would look like, because if you go from, somebody got to go from 12 months to a 15-month fiscal year. When we look at where we are financially within the appraisal district, we actually have sufficient funds that we can cover 15 months of appraisal district work and not have to go back to the taxing entities for any more money other than a normal schedule. So I wanted to bring that up here. Essentially what that means is we would continue on and change the calendar year and essentially what that would allow us to do is set a budget come 1 October for a 15-month period, but we would only come back to the entities for 12 months. So that's the game plan strategy. So when we think about what Alpine currently pays, Alpine would pay no more than it would for 15 months as it would for 12 months, and we'll get back in cycle. So that was one. Does that make sense? Okay. So second item, we've gone through and looked at our bylaws, and we have a couple of members. You see a letter in here from our board secretary, from Mary McAllister. It indicates that Mr. Sanders resigned from the board. His term would have expired at the end of this year. We have, in addition to Ron passing, we have 2 other board members who, when we look at our bylaws, aren't allowed to be on board. And so we are going to be looking at members to replace them. We have an obligation, according to our bylaws, to notify all of the members of the taxing entity to let them know when a vacancy exists. So that's what this letter is. So we get another letter relative to the other 2 positions. I would also tell you that there's a resolution passed in the 1990s that essentially said every one of the 7 districts that are represented will appoint their own individual to work that. Nonetheless, we as a board still have to approve that. So our statutory obligation to notify all of the entities that we change the members. You get one more letter. We'll bring this up in the most likely the May, June meeting to finalize that and make a decision to press forward. As part of my role to represent the city, assessment district, I want to make sure the council is. That's all I have.
Thanks very much. Remember.
Well, item B is also mine. So item B is a follow-up, and we had a discussion at the last city council meeting about roads and the challenges there. So I pulled a page out of our budget that we approved this last year, which includes performance measures and expenditures. We had allocated $1.16 million to the streets department, which includes labor, maintenance, material, as well as capital improvements streets, which tends to be contracted out. And I thought it worthwhile to have a discussion, get some feedback about where are we relative to those performance measures, given that we're supposed to resurface 36 blocks, 250 potholes repaired by the ton, replace 200 signs, 120 work orders, get those completed, repair vehicles and maintain 30 miles of drainage, and then do training hours. So I thought it worthwhile to put some of it. So the city manager has the updates for that information, but I wanted to get it out because I get lots of questions. Where are we on the street? Okay.
Going to the performance measures, the first performance measure was streets resurfaced blocks. We have not resurfaced any blocks. We have milled and addressed some serious issues on 22.6 blocks. They have been milled and then base added to them. They're ready for paving for the most part, if we get to that point. Potholes repaired by ton. The street department has utilized or has ordered 220.95 tons of material to replace potholes. The benchmark there was 250. I don't have a number on the number of street signs replaced, but I do know there was some extensive street sign replacement that was going on in December. Work orders placed to date is 71. Work orders completed is 50. Vehicles repaired and maintained. There are still 12 vehicles that our mechanic is still working on. We didn't have a number last year for right-of-way acres maintained, and Eddie was in the process of putting that together. Out of drainage maintained was 30 miles, and they have already started doing that maintenance, but we didn't have an accurate number for me as to how many miles have been done at this point. Training hours was set for 360, with 40 hours per employee, and according to what we were showing, the employees have received somewhere about 15 hours, some of them only have 10. And so we're still working on getting them trained. There's some mandatory trainings that we're doing citywide at the request of TML. And then other trainings that are coming in. We did send 2 employees to go get training for the pool. One of them did get his certification and will be presenting him at the next council meeting. And the other one will be retaking the test. So the training is ongoing. As for where we're at right now, street maintenance material, we're at 46%. We've used 46% of our budget, and out of the capital improvement line, we use 9%. So there is a substantial amount of money still sitting there. We've had some conversations about doing the street study. It was originally budgeted at 20,000, came in at 43. There was one that came in less, but they weren't going to be able to get to it until end of June, maybe July, which of course is too late. The street study's been presented twice to council and did not pass it at either one of those meetings. Again, going off of what Hector left for us from last year. Have it in here. It actually totaled 1.68 miles, which still would leave us short of that 36 benchmark. The issue right now is that our street department is relatively new. For many years, Hector and his brother Jose Luis assisted with Eddie in operating the equipment. Both of them have retired, and there is not sufficient capacity or knowledge within the department to operate that machinery. Because of where these streets kind of lie, they're a little scattered. And so to contract them out is going to be a little bit more expensive than if we just pick an area. The intent with the street study was to have the consultant go through, evaluate the streets, prioritize them, and then be able to address them in sections to keep costs down, as well as mobilization costs and things like that. The other issue is that we don't have an engineer on staff to design this. I did send a letter or a request out to TML, their legal department. They responded that as a city, you are required to have an engineer design the project and oversee the project. I know that I've shared that information with many of you from the state statute, as well as the procurement manual that the state puts out. And so that's kind of where we're at with the streets. Eddie and his crew continue to work on potholes. We have talked about perhaps bringing Hector and his brother back on contract. Neither one of them has confirmed with us that they are willing to come back to do a paving season. Eddie has ordered material as well as some additional adhesive in preparation, but it's all going to depend on whether they come back and want to do it.
just to kind of give you an idea of the funds, if you do a street study, and I rounded it up to 50,000, even though the proposal was for 43, you've got approximately 2,550 households in Alpine. So the cost for a street study is minimal per household on that over the past couple of months. And you'll hear in the audit that we pulled funds from the gas department and the street and general fund to complete the project at the airport, 216,560. At the last meeting, they're expected to need another 247,000 in the next few years to include a master plan for the airport. There are approximately 35 to 40 hangars. So at 40 hangars, that cost is for a master plan at 70,000 is $1,750. So to me, I think it makes sense to go ahead and spend that money to do the street study that'll give the city a plan for the next 5 to 10 years in addressing its streets and improvements. It can then be tied into the line replacement program for the water and the sewer and the gas department to relocate that infrastructure and replace old lines. Before last, we had a sewer line collapse out on the loop, and we contract someone to come in to take care of that, to get it addressed right away. And there are a number of areas within the city that are still working off of clay pipes, pipes that have never been replaced since the city first implemented its water and sewer. And so it's really up to the council as far as how they want to proceed with this. We contract it out. We can potentially put out an RFP for engineering. But if we get that study done, at least it lays out a plan for us for the next 5 to 10 years. It also allows an opportunity for the public to come in and engage in that process and kind of put in their 2 cents as to what their needs are on those streets. That's where we're at with the benchmarks and where we're at with the rest of it.
So thanks for that update. Regardless of whether we do the street study or not, what I think I heard is we have to have an engineer. Why are we waiting to go find an engineer? Why do we need to?
And how much will it cost us to?
Generally, an engineer is going to run you 10% of your project cost. So if we're going to do 300,000, the engineer will probably charge about 30,000 to do all of that. And that usually includes the project management. It's not just the design, but it's project management and quality control. I think the reason that I've not brought forward the RFQ to bring an engineer to do that is because the original plan was to do the street study. We had some requests to put in some sidewalks. We had some requests to put in some crosswalks. In discussions with Chris Weber, he said, yeah, you definitely need to make sure you have a study done before you put those in. Crosswalks and signage tend to give people a false sense of security. And we just recently had that discussion as part of Quarter 67 planning meetings as well. And if council wants to go ahead and by direction to go ahead and bring in an engineer, we can do that. But I think the street study is still something that you need to lay out a capital improvement plan for the next 5 to 10 years of the city.
But if we've got 22.6 blocks that we're building, what I think I heard is we have to have an engineer on staff before we go to the next level.
Yes, because they need to make sure that the slope and the quantity and make sure there's appropriate base layer.
So there certainly is a study, which is the longer term, but in the near term, we got 22.6 blocks that are sitting there with no capability to do an independent study.
They could, yeah.
So
19.6 of those blocks are country club seats. That would make it very happy.
So I would suggest you come back to council with a plan.
With a plan or with an RFQ?
Let's talk about plan and strategy. Talk about it. We allocated $250 million in that part. Go to the study of our water sewers, which is all about And then street signs, you said a number of street signs have been replaced. Where have those been? And what street signs are we talking about?
They replaced some stop and yield signs, readjusted some poles. They worked on, I don't have the number, they didn't get the number back from any of how many signs they were doing, but they were also working on other signage. We also met with Chris Weber and Chris Rougier to talk about the Wayfarers signs, and so we did kind of set aside a little bit of this money in case we needed to cover some signs on our own. And Chris will probably get back with us within the next 2 weeks or so on what signs they can pay for and then what signs the city wants.
Jessica, you mentioned the repaving season. Can you what do you actually mean by that?
Well, you can generally repave as long as you don't have temperatures drop below 40 degrees consistently. And so I guess depending on what weather pattern you look at, your paving season could run as late as October or could end as early. Or I should say that. It could end as early as October or could go as late as November.
And with the idea of just to align the rainy season for this area. I'm not sure if I do recall correctly. The last go around on repaving, we laid out some streets and they look nice. But then we got into the rainy season, you know, kind of with the asphalt. So I guess keeping in mind in the rainy season, temperature and all the other something to consider.
And weather was something that we were reporting, and I think with the airport project that we didn't have too many days down with weather.
Mm-hmm.
I think that project has been pushed back 3 months ago.
For the, I think it's the AlpineCityCouncil04.
All right.
This year we requested for soon 20,000 for the resetting the study on the pavement. We found out that according to the return results, we needed actually close to 50,000, which means that this next go around when we get into the budget setting, we find it maybe favorable that we should reconsider, but at a higher level of funding.
I think it all depends on the complexity of what you're asking. The needs assessment for the water and the sewer system, we put a cap on it at 150,000 with various items. There's going to be some readjustment on that scope because we were able to get some pretty technical assistance to address some of those issues from TCEQ. They'll actually be here in 2 weeks, so they're going to start addressing some of the minor issues, which will leave us a little bit more room to do some of the more complex stuff within that process. When you do a request for qualifications for professional services, you can put a cap on it in your budget, but you still have to negotiate with whoever you choose. The consultant study that we did for the street basically said, this is the scope that I need, give me a price. If they had come in over 50,000, then we would have had to procure their work a different way, because of Chapter 252 on procurement, so anything over 50,000. So I think it just depends on how technical and how comprehensive we want those studies to be. In this case, we kind of just did this part. Generally, when you do a full transportation study, there are 7 elements to it, which is the initial evaluation and identification of the streets, the mapping, what they call cross-section designs, actual traffic counts, and things like that. That's not going to be in this study. This is just basically a survey and identification of the streets and their current issues, to give us an idea of the priority, how we move forward over the next few years. With the cost estimate, with a measurable amount of inflation added each year, so that we know also what we need to budget to accomplish that year's streets. Does it mean that you'll always be able to hit it? Probably not. There are always unforeseen circumstances when you're doing any kind of public works project. It could be a line that nobody knew was there, and it could be right-of-way issues and survey issues. So sometimes those things end up impacting that price, and so what we get done in the end ends up being less than.
Considering all the things we have discussed, it seems that we're gonna be doing some repaving.
I'm really hoping that that we're able to bring Hector and his brother back on contract basis. And if we are, then on the next agenda, we'll ask to have council's approval to bring them in on a contract. Their expenses will come out of that same line.
And then the two other items, study for streets and hiring an engineer. I'm sure you want to go from both. What do you think would be the priority?
Between, well, you're gonna have to do one either way. As long as the project exceeds $20,000, you have to bring in an engineer.
Engineer.
And that's set by GMS code.
It's set by state law. Yes, and there are a number of ways you can do it. I mean, we could always do an RFQ for an on-call engineer and have him work with projects as we get through them, instead of doing kind of a bulk type of RFQ. And that way he's addressing each project separately or each section separately, as opposed to if he designs a cross section on one and says this applies to these 5 streets, and you don't have to streets where it's designed all the streets. That's my personal. But it depends on the survey, because again, the survey may come back and say, yeah, you just need to do an overlay here, seal code. That doesn't require, that wouldn't require a full engineering design.
So without the study and we start paving streets, would we shorten the lifespan of the street?
Well, without the study, you're not going to shorten the lifespan of the streets. What's going to shorten the lifespan of the streets is having to go on and replace the infrastructure on the street first. That's what's going to happen. And if it's not sloped the right way or sloped enough, carrying water, it's going to deteriorate the edge of your.
Okay. Signet, it's yours.
This is the update on the sale of delinquent properties, and I would like to introduce Lori, Danny and Lori. Lori's like, no, just kidding. Yeah, we're ready.
Mayor, Council, glad to be here. Jessica, thanks for asking this. This is Lori Wilmarsh, our right-hand person here in Alpine mid area. She's been a great help. Back in May of 18, I switched over to the law firm of Purdue Brandon Field for my tax work. Spring contract, we really get started in June. If you're familiar with delinquent taxes, June is the end of the delinquent tax year. July 1st is the beginning. So we really got going July the 1st. So we've kind of been at it 10 months, so to speak. I guess I'm saying the report I brought to you is kind of from our Texas Communities Group work. Texas Communities Group is a kind of subsidiary company that runs alongside with Purdue does some things in addition to just straight normal delinquent tax collection. We try to find some money that you might not have been able to access before. So I'm going to kind of go through that. I'm going to kind of start backwards. First, I'm going to start with our trust property sales. Trust properties are properties that have previously been to foreclosure. Nobody paid the minimum bid at the time, and so it struck off. And so you own it in conjunction with the other taxes, school, and hospital.
So we have no data, so I don't know what you're going to share with us. That's fine.
Okay.
We didn't get it.
Okay. We were working on this yesterday, so that's my fault. I've got notes written on all. So anyway, those trust properties, y'all had one trust property within the city limits. We used our marketing and we were selling some other properties in the school district that were not in the city. But one property we got sold for $12,500. So we brought in $12,500 on that, got it back on the tax roll, and some people in the owner's hands, and somebody's taking care of that previously exempt property. The other thing we do is we work with the city and the city staff on identifying some vacant abandoned properties. And we execute tax warrants through the law firm. We work, identify, get an affidavit of vacancy. What that does, it kind of kicks some of those properties that people have walked away from, maybe passed away, left the country, or died, or got probate. And folks are scattered, but nobody's using the property. We executed a tax warrant here. We started with 19 properties. The first one that we did, 5 of those parcels were, we identified people who got in contact with those people and got them paid before we actually went to sale. That collected $11,542 worth of taxes. So you get a portion of that. We had one property that was struck off. You all did the trust now. We're kind of working with Jessica and her staff on that.
We'll tell that story at the end.
Yeah, that's a good story to end on. We have a plan on that piece of property is what we can do with it. We think we've got a lot of options there. And then we had 13 of those properties sell at the tax sale, generating $68,000 for purchase money at the sale that you get to share with the other entities. So we're very happy with that. All told, when you look for just the city, there were about $98,000 worth of tax payments and sales that we generated. If you look at just kind of based off tax rates, your portion of that is going to be about $27,500 about 10 months. And so that's in addition to the delinquent tax work that's going on. So we're very happy with that. We think we're off to a really good start. One thing I did want to add, which is a great thing, we hope we can find this type of thing. Thank you for the services that Purdue provides and with some of the things we do with TCG. We can find some extra money for you. In that sale, it was such a good sale. We do some extra things as far as getting the word out. We had excess proceeds in that sale of $6,300. We worked with your city attorney, passed that information on to him. One of those properties we sold, we all had demolition lien reported for about $2,000 or so. And so we drilled the instruments and they were taking care of it for it. And you should be able to get all of that $6,300 to the city to compensate for that convenience that we. So if you've been in the business a long time like me, you don't see that happen very often. So we're very happy.
So why wouldn't you check for the liens prior to sale?
Oh, we do. We knew we had a lien.
You didn't have a lien, so why would you therefore set a minimum so the city would give out its money back?
He was a huge property tax seizure, so we could sell to the property tax.
Well, how do we fix that? Because potentially the city would find itself in a situation for having flood going down for safety requirements and never get any money.
A lot of times in city limits, sometimes you just don't. And it depends on how the property is sold. Really, sometimes the only time you see some money is when it actually goes through a property tax foreclosure and when you have excess proceeds. So it's kind of a great thing to happen. And quite honestly, we've seen a lot of cities kind of do away with it. just sometimes depending on how that property changes hands, they keep the taxes paid. Sometimes it doesn't go to a normal close where they go and take care of it. So we're very excited to get that money to you. Probably not all of it, obviously, but it is some. So we're very happy. Other than that, like you said, I don't know if you want to bring up that property or not, but
the one property that that did not sell, that we currently have the sign for sale on. While Lori was doing research and Victor and Scott were doing some research, discovered that property sits on top of an old cemetery. And there are still bodies buried within the property. So this is between First and I can't remember the street to the east of that. And it's right where the community center sits. And one of the neighbors says, "Oh yeah, when it rains here, you can see where the coffins are at." We're like, "Okay." I reached out to Sel Ross with their archives, and she sent me kind of a one-page little write-up. Not sure where it came out of. And apparently, according to the story, there were some cowboys that were out, and one of them said, "When I die, I want you to bury me on that hill." And so they buried him, and then someone said, "Hey, look, there's a grave. Let's bury the next person, and let's bury the next person." And it became known as Boot Hill. And sometime later on, when the city was installing, it was water lines or gas lines, they disturbed some of those graves, and so they put all of the. I guess they contacted the Texas Historical Commission. They came out, they put all of those remains in one box, and they were reinterred at the present-day cemetery. But there are still bodies buried under those houses, and I'm going to say maybe altogether there's about 45 houses in that area on top of that cemetery. This particular property has a mausoleum that sits half in its property, half in the property behind it, and they fashioned the fence to go over the mausoleum. So we are trying to figure out, aside from just disclosing what's on there, how we proceed with selling the property. I think, Lori, you said somebody had already called wanting to purchase it.
Two of the neighbors said that they have interest in it.
have that call. But really, we're ecstatic with the start of it. I think we're also using a marketing tool on the Alpine School property. We call it Texas Communities, cities. But I think overall, properties we sold that were in trust there for the school district, including what we did with the city. But we're looking at about $121,000 generated from this work. So good start.
Then a couple questions on the seizures. It says 19 up top, 5 plus 1 plus 13 is the 19. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, we had 13 that were sold, and then the one started off 14 5 parcels. So we'll actually pull from the sale to the tax payment.
And these numbers, they reflect the total collections, which Alpine gets 225.
About approximately 23% basically.
And remind me what the business arrangement is with you all, how you all get paid.
We are working here through, we wanted to come in and do work for a year, kind of show you what the services do. And we can negotiate it here in July.
So, but how do you get paid? I mean, is your cost greater than what you're making here? So we pay you on a percentage basis of what you repair a house out. We base it kind of on the population and the number of trust properties that you have when you start. So what we would have charged probably would have been around $3,000. So it's just an added service, kind of an extension a little bit, kind of dubbed it foreclosure, beyond foreclosure. What are you going to do after that? So what we tried to do is price it in a way that hopefully we generate more money than Is it a fixed fee or percentage?
Fixed fee.
It's fixed fee.
Yeah. We don't make any money off the sales, commission or any percentage. thank y'all. We appreciate it. It's been great working with Jessica and the staff. And like I said, we're pretty excited with 10 months. We're happy to finish. So thank y'all.
Okay, thank you. And this one's yours, sir. That's going to be this.
Hey. I'd like to bring out the following discussion and that's for consideration of council. Is the need to conduct a citywide study to assess if residents within the established municipal boundary have access to city services such as water, sewer, and accessible roads up to their property. And I'd like if I can make the equipment work.
Get those to turn out.
I'd like to first of all start off with by saying that a couple of weeks back we had a very interesting discussion. In fact, the gentleman Dylan Mack is here. We brought up a very interesting topic about the possibility of seeing if we could have an extension of the sewer line services from where they exist now on towards his property where he can tap in. And the information that was brought up was most interesting because he also happened to mention that along the area where he lives, there are other properties that are also found there, and there's a possibility that they may also be interested in tapping into the sewer line if available. The interesting thing is that his property, apparently, there's a little bit of confusion here that whether it's within the boundary of the city and whether it was an annex. And I think Galen and Councilman Stevens are going to be working on that to try to assess the actual status of the property. But to begin with, I'd like to just put up here a map of the boards within the city. And of course, I represent Ward 2. It's a really interesting shaped board. But it basically starts off around 7th Street and then all the way down to this area and then back up towards Brown Street and then back to 7th across the tracks. The I hit the right one here. Oops. Paragraph not gonna work. Let me go back into maps. Okay, here's a city map of a beautiful city, Alpine. And the area that I'd like to expand on is okay, I'll start right here. Mosley Lane Loop is in the area that Galen lives in, well, the residents. And interesting enough, within that area, the sewer line, the city sewer line right now ends up right about here. His home is here, but there are quite a few other homes in between that could benefit from an extension of that sewer line to his property within the city of Alpine. But again, there's a question of whether his property was annexed into the city, and it brings up another interesting point that I'd like to make is that we might want to do an extensive study, take an extensive study of all the properties that have been accessed within the city boundary of Alpine and find out where they're located on one single map. I think would be most beneficial for us to make assessments as to what the needs are for residents within those annexed regions. When one looks at Mosley Lane, there's quite a few homes out there. And I have no idea within Ward 2 whether maybe for some of the residents that are found here, whether they have access to sewer, to water, or whether the roads are paved up to the boundary that leads into the property. So it might be, the idea would be good in this discussion to see if we might start focusing on a study to find out where the annexation limits are and try to make one big map that will help us to plan for the future in the city.
We actually started that. We had somebody starting to put the maps together with the annexations. So we have the city limits, and then there are blank spaces where we have not been able to locate the actual annexation documents. Mr. Max is one of those, but which one names to like 8 or 9? There are like 9 annexations that we have not been able to find. So we started working on that for that purpose, to identify when the annexations took place so that we know what our obligations are as the city to those areas are. But I think Gio spends more time at the courthouse looking up stuff than in here. but he's been looking for Mr. Max since we first talked 9 months ago, 10 months ago.
Sure, I've been working on it for a long time. But until I found the original corporation.
Yeah, we can't. Yeah. So that map is already in progress. And so as Geo finds annexations, he's sending them off to the person who's doing the mapping for us so they can color it in and get it together.
Yeah, because in the code of ordinances, you have your annexations by year. And it gives a nice description, but it takes a survey to understand.
Well, and that's what he does, is he goes off of those survey points to identify where they're at. Yeah, there's about 10 blanks still on that map where we're still looking for annexation.
So the map of record is in progress.
Yes, it is.
Actually, discussion and information is primarily on this council.
And I had a question also about Mr. Skinner a while back, and he said that mostly food was part of theirs. Their property. But they kind of given the city the time to do so.
So according to the maps that we have from the other annexations adjacent to Mr. Max, is that the city annexed the property so the roadway is technically a county road. So to run the extension, we have to get permission from the county to be able to utilize their road and their right of way to run those lines out there. And then of course, repave the road up to their expectations for but yes, I think if the other, and this was something that we had talked about before, if it was possible for Mr. Mack to reach out to his neighbors and then they could share the costs of running that sewer line up there, that would be, that would come fast. Of course, annexation that took place, and they can jump in and correct me, but I believe it's 1987. I think if the annexation, it's not, I don't remember here. But there's a break point where cities have to provide service plans with their annexations, and basically, if you wanted to come in, you came in with no guarantee of. I don't remember the exact year of that. About 87, I think, these were the colonial bill. But that's why it's important to find out when he was annexed. If it was annexed after that and the service plan was done, then city does not have an obligation to extend those services to him, but prior to that, him and his neighbors would have to cost share the extension.
So that's about a year.
So just some additional information. Galen, after we had a discussion last night, our council sent me a copy of the deeds going all the way back to 1910 when the city was along with this plan. I had a surveyor take a look at that. I just got feedback today. He said his property is not part of that original letter B. You probably haven't seen the email yet. I sent you an email today. I will be sitting with the surveyor on Thursday. If it is, it's one thing. If it's not, then I continue on that path.
And I think that's kind of what our mapping person found out, and said it wasn't in that original. It's about to us.
So,
What was that?
He suggested to me that it was.
yeah, that was part of that process. I just went to get the surveyor. Just after I read it, the same perspective, I thought it was in. You know, I said, okay, let me go get an expert who actually has done the plot and stuff.
Yes, item 8 is discuss the need to conduct excessive research regarding types and numbers of animal violations and citations issued per ward. And, fellow councilman, we have before you 3 items, and I think I made an extra copy for Jessica as well, if you got it. One is, again, a nice, lovely map of the wards for the city. The other is a report, the ACO report for February, which I think we got by email, or at least I got this copy by email. And in the ACO report, sort of provides some good information regarding animal pickups, strays out there, the numbers that get returned, those that get adopted, and so forth. It gives you a sort of a overall picture of what's going on. But I feel that maybe we could get more information. My example on the graph, item number 2, the second copy, which if we could, the same items to be addressed, but to try to assess, yes, the total number, but how many are coming from each of the wards. I think that would be useful information, planning strategy, and I'm doing some things in the future for our residents and their pets. So,
I think it's really
yeah.
That would be a lot of patrol officers. I mean, I think you could probably get them to give the address of where they can go.
the only good thing of this if they chase it out. And from where they are one. Yeah.
I also, since we're talking tonight, especially about mental health control, with the animal advisory board, we've been working on Jennifer and Nancy are working on this matrix of different towns in Texas, and the way that they've been able to change some laws regarding animals. Some different ideas that we're working with a holistic, everybody what we're working on. It's just kind of an outline of what we're working on. I think it's going to be really well because they've got a really good system set up, or that we're working on. Like they've got a number system of how dangerous the animal is, how dangerous the attack was, how if it was an attack, if it was an attack on a person. If it was provoked enough to prevent this from the system, so it would be easier for officers also to check off and then have a number to work with instead of saying, it seemed like it was like this, so this is that's new stuff. Is it Jennifer?
Mayor, if I may. Nick did send over some drafts from ordinances from other cities. That I think in the next animal advisory board, we can share those and see what language we want to put on there and add to ours.
Yeah, that's what we've been working on. We're just going over some of the stuff that they put together. It's good stuff.
I think we still need to study as far as the cost would be, so break it down by boards would be the cost of it. And not that all the other boards are not important, but you know, we need to kind of get an idea.
And that ACO report that I emailed you, it's actually attached to your report when the police chief brings it, when he presents. The animal control report is back there, but he generally doesn't. I think Nick wanted to add.
Yes, sir.
Well, I couldn't hear all the comments tonight, but we do have some issues with definitions of in our animal ordinance, and we are prepared to work on that. If you have any particular questions about some of the problems we have with the ordinance, I can help you with that.
All right, sir. Any questions, sir? Right, thanks, sir. And we're going to move on to the action items to be accompanied by a brief statement of facts, including where funds are coming from. Action items limited up to 10 per meeting. Citizens are allowed to comment within 3 minutes after being called upon by the mayor. Those are required to state their names and the voting votes to decide. Priorities will be given to the citizens of Alpine and those who do business or about the city. Individuals who do not live it or own business or property in the city of Alpine be allowed to speak or respond to them. Councilman Stevens.
So, Mr. Mayor, the first one is discuss and consider take action to adopt the ordinance 2019-04-01 and ordinance of the city of Alpine and then check rate 2.1 regulations. The ordinance city of Alpine, Texas, by adding in a new Article 10 contractor registration, provide for the registration of contractors and setting fees for the registration of contractor, providing for the short cumulative, providing for the clause, providing the penalty clause, providing for publication of official newspaper, providing an effective date. Given the discussion and the input that I've gotten, including tonight, I'm going to propose we table that. And because there have been lots of feedback from lots of contractors in addition here this evening, while they understand the need from a registration standpoint, there's pushback relative to fees, which I agree with is an issue. We have not yet set the fee structure for permits. So I propose we table this until such time as we sort out the overall fee schedule. As I know, the proposal is, and we're going to have lots of discussion with contractors, based upon what we've seen this far, there's a proposal that I don't think it's fair to ask contractors to pay more for that and pay more for this. So I propose we table action.
So it's been made the second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Stevens.
Sir, item number 2 is discussion and consider take action, excuse me, to approve a policy through resolution 2019-04-2 that the city of Alpine will utilize budget average billing for gas and water services for those residents who wish to utilize Planets or others building, budgeting, and direct the city manager to implement the policy within 30 days. You see a draft resolution in front of you, and I propose that we adopt the resolution as written with 2 exceptions. In the third line between the words gas and water services 2, it's going to sign and replace the word start, because the intent was to start, give people the ability to start signing up for that within a week. And the same in the bottom paragraph, the same at the word start in front of sign, which is near the end of that third sentence. So that's
So second. Okay, motion made second, any discussion?
So I think, the discussion, I know this came up in last city council, the reason that this is worded as it is I've gotten quite a bit of feedback, continue to get feedback from citizens that this was put in place, both gas and water were stopped by direction of the city manager. And I want to make sure that we get that put back in as a tool. We've got to have a mechanism because we didn't hear about it the first time, it just stopped. So that's the basis for the resolution.
I wanted to see if Nick had referred to the fact that he found maybe an originating ordinance for this. Is there an ordinance? Were you able to locate the ordinance, Nick?
We found an old resolution from 2002, but we haven't been able to find all the wording of that resolution, but that's when it was apparently established, was in 2002.
So you'd be drafting an ordinance to
Yeah,
go into our ordinance?
Yeah, we really wanted to see that original resolution to see what the setup was, but we're working on an ordinance and it should be ready by the next meeting.
So that one had an email from Jessica, it says that tourist companies. Gas is done in March, as far as the discussion by the tomorrow. If we agree, we will send out those and stuff too, to those in the building.
We stopped it.
But we stopped.
For both gas and water, council was never brought into that discussion. I want to put it back in. That's the basis for the resolution. Get it put back in.
Go back in there. Any discussion?
So until we actually have the ordinance, there's nothing to implement. Because there's no,
Well, there is something. That's why the resolution is written as it is. It is for the city to allow people to start signing up for that, so we know who is interested in moving forward, and that we would have the implementation occur not later than 31 days. There's plenty of time to get an ordinance in place for the city council to approve, which makes it.
All those in favor? Raise your right hand. Opposed? For sure. Okay.
So the next item on here was to discuss, consider, and take action on the second and final reading of the ordinance 2019-03-01, City of Alpine, Texas, amending Chapter 94 traffic vehicles of the ordinance of City of Alpine, Texas, to require approved request of police services, providing that this ordinance should be approved, providing subcode clause, providing for safety clause, providing penalty clause, providing for publication officially, and providing an effective date. As a reminder, we went forward with this, and I initiated based upon feedback from the police department, given their escorting all the solitaire trailers through, and their whole intent was to be able to get solitaire, to be able to give them a call so they could get an off-duty police officer available to put that in place. And I still believe that's the right thing to do for solitaire. However, there are other clearly large vehicles that go through. I think we need to table this as well to better understand the implication for most of the business here locally, and then come back with a potential plan for that. So I propose we table this in favor of gathering more information before we take action.
Mayor, before you take a second, I just want to point out that this ordinance specifically is only for those vehicles and loads that require a manufactured housing single trip permit from the Texas Department of Motor Vehicles. It does not impact any other industry except for loans.
I think we need to reword that interested.
Well, it says that.
Okay.
It says it in there. I'd still like to hold it right now until we go get it rolling, make sure we got all the action.
Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of taking the motion. employees. And city manager.
This is discuss, consider, and take action to accept the fiscal year 2017-2018 audit presented by Gibson Ruddock Patterson LLC. And with us tonight is Marlene and Greg.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I would like to thank you all for moving that executive session back.
Yeah, right back.
We've passed out some graphs I'd like to go over with you that I think really boil the financial statements down into a nutshell. The first one is a comparison of governmental revenue over the last 5 years. You can see there's been some steady increase. Now this year is very similar to the previous year. Little bit of fluctuation. The blue there on the bottom is property taxes, and you can see a little bit of an increase there, and that relates to value increases. Okay, the gold section there in the middle is basically all the other taxes. You can see between 16 and 17, there was a significant jump, and that related to the hotel tax. We had about a $130,000 increase that year. This year it's a little bit less. The hotel taxes went down about 25, and then some other fluctuations as well. The gray stripe there is we refer to as intergovernmental. It's basically grant revenue, and that's just going to fluctuate based on whatever grants you have going on. The green is the admin and franchise tax, so that's basically what we're charging to the proprietary funds. Okay, that's coming in because we do all the work for them here, the bookkeeping. And then the red section there is just everything else, the other revenue, and that stays fairly constant. Well, no surprises there. On the next page is just a comparison of the general fund expenditures. So this is just the general fund. The blue section on the bottom is just our general expenditures, and this is coming from Exhibit C3 out of the big bound document, which is page 27. But so the general government is almost the same as prior year, went down just a little bit. The gold section is public works, and you can see in 17 there was a very large increase, and then we went back down to where we had been. Well, that relates to the street projects that has been in the prior year. The red section is health and welfare, and that is almost identical to previous years. The gray is the culture and recreation. You can see a little bit of an increase there, and that's almost all in payroll expenditures. And then the green is public safety, and that's almost identical to the prior year as well. Yes, sir.
Health and welfare, does that include what we pay healthcare for employees? So that's
No. That's a benefit, and so your health insurance goes along with wherever the payroll cost goes.
so what's going on?
Well, let me introduce you to Marlene, and she will tell you exactly what's it. In fact, I would like y'all to be the first to hear this. This is the newest partner.
Cool. Congratulations.
On
welfare, I would need, I do not have it with me, the trial balance, because we convert everything that has to do with health and welfare. I'm trying to think of some of the functions, the departments. We take your departments and categorize it here. I can get you that. I do not know it off the top of my head.
I can, if it's defined in your element.
And it's going to be services to the public, okay?
You know what, the animal, it's, just give me a second, animal control is in there. Oh, anything to do with the animal control.
Your dispatch,
No,
Public
that's
safety.
public safety. Public safety includes your police, culture and recreation includes the parks, and
Swimming
that.
pools.
Public works is your streets. So the health and welfare, I think, is the
Animal control
animal control, and maybe,
could be the ambulance.
yes, and but we can get you that for sure.
But most of the animal control is probably.
Right.
Right.
The next graph is comparison of the general fund equity. So this is the fund balance in the general fund. And the blue represents the unassigned, and the red is basically the committed, which is specifically set aside for certain purposes. As you can see, there has been significant improvement in that blue category over the last 5 years. It started out $1 million underwater, and now we're sitting at 923,000. So we are very pleased. Across the bottom of that, in the kind of gold or orange color, I did a calculation of the number of days of expenditures that we have in the unassigned. The GFOA, that's the Government Financial Officers Association, that's a national organization that sets most of the rules that we follow in accounting for government entities. They have the recommendation that a general government, like a city or county, maintain a minimum of 60 to 90 days of expenditures. And what this is, if there is a fluctuation in our revenue for whatever reason, that we can continue operations for 60 to 90 days. And this is also an issue that rating agencies look at whenever you're going to sell bonds and so forth. And I'd like to see a nice constant level of equity. If you were a corporation, you would refer to this as retained earnings. Okay, and so just like if you were an investor, you would want to invest in companies that maintain a reasonable level in their retained earnings. So you are currently at a sweet spot, 88 days. This is a very good report for the city. The next graph is comparison of the water and sewer and sanitation fund. The blue represents the revenue, the gold represents the expenses. There was just a little bit of increase in the revenue. The sanitation rate went up about 4%. The expenses, there's a little bit of an increase there. Three major players in that. The administrative fee that paid to the general fund went up about 20,000. Sanitation contract expense went up about 90. However, that we had a reduction in the sewer department of about 75,000, because the prior year had some specific activity related to the sludge removal some drainage issues. The next graph is the gas utility fund. Again, you see a little bit of an increase in the revenue, and that just relates to increased usage. Evidently, this past year was a little colder than the year before, so we used a little more gas. The gold shows some decreases in expenses as well. The prior year, we had about 75,000 that we paid for road improvements or repairs, and also the each year there is an allocation of pension fund expense, and that calculation is just a bear. But anyway, it's based on actuarial reports, and this year it was about 22,000 less than the previous year, so that represents the decrease in that expense. We are pleased to report that there are no findings. We do, however, have a number of management comments that are recommendations for improvement, either tighten down some policies, clarify some policies, improve some processes. And so I think they're all pretty straightforward, and management has provided a response to each one as well. So in the interest of time, I will refrain from going over those, but it is something that we do take very serious, and we think they're all valid comments. But if you would like more information, more lean, be willing to go over those. Any other questions? There's just a wealth of information in here.
Yeah, just some observations in looking at the balance sheet with our debt still about $4.5 million. So that's on page 16. Page 20 talks about cash equivalents. We have $5.88 million, and there's $2.4 million recovered from $3.5 million business. So, total assets $36.5 million, liabilities $7.6 million. So, net assets slightly over $10 million. So that will continue to be. And the last thing I would look at as I go through this, balance on hot funding is $186,000, and the fund balance overall is just shy of $1,000. So that's when I look at it from a liquidity standpoint, I understand that's my sense of what's the financial.
You're in very good shape compared to 5 years ago. The change was tremendous. So congratulations to you guys and your staff. You've done a very good job of taking your finances serious, doing your budgets, looking after things. I really commend you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we take action to accept the fiscal year 2017-18 audit presented by Gibson, Reddick, and Patterson as presented.
Is there a second? Okay, motion made, second, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please vote. All those not signed, motion carries. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much. Y'all take care.
City manager.
Mayor, the last item on the action agenda is discuss, consider, and take action to approve resolution 2019-0401, establishing a bike share program at the visitor center.
We have the last one.
We have 14 bikes. So Ross just gave us another handful of them. The National Guard is going to be refurbishing them for us, so we can add more bikes to bike share. So at this point, the resolution is there to create the program. We don't have a full implementation plan on it yet. So we'll present that to council later. So council so chooses to table this until that implementation plan is ready, I don't know.
Should,
Can I have a motion?
I know, so you know, it's-
Please, sir.
so I'll entertain a motion on this.
The challenge is, I'd like to wait, but there are a number of things we'd like to talk about.
Yeah, that's real.
Yeah. So I move that we consider the action and potentially table it following discussion.
Is there a second? Okay, any discussion?
So now discussion, because we all want to talk about it. One of the things I think will be important from a implementation standpoint is covering insurance waivers. Because that'll be, we, the city, do not want to find ourselves at risk of liability having a bike share program. Someone fall off, break their whatever, come back with suits for that. Second question will be, we want to understand what the cost to maintain the bicycles is, so like National Guard working, that's great. What's the long-term plan? And the third is, are we going to end up competing with others who are renting bikes in the city? Those are my three things.
I know that Meg and I had talked about on the implementation as far as securing them as well, making sure that they get returned and they don't get run off. And so part of that is they would have to request the bike in person, provide some identification, and sign off on a waiver moving us from us of liability in case there's an injury. Also, we'll have on there some common sense items that the riders agree to follow all the traffic laws and safety while they're on the streets and only ride in allowable areas. The cost to maintain, the bikes that we got are in pretty good shape from Martha. They're both force collected, and the only thing that we're doing to them right now is painting them. There's Alpine decals on them. Long term, there will probably be some tires. What they're going to be doing with these new bikes is stripping the gears off of them so that we don't have to worry about messing with gears and extra chains and things like that. So they'll just have to break. That's about it. That'll reduce maintenance issues with them and also put on some of those sturdier tires on there so that they'll last longer. Maintenance will probably run us, depending on the year and how much use we get out of it, anywhere from maybe $10 to $15 a bike to we may have to just fill the bike out. But considering at this point that the ones that are coming from Cell Loss were all free, I think it's a win. As far as competition, Chris Ruggia did talk with some others here in the city. He talked to the gentleman across the street who actually fixes the bike to kind of get an idea of what that cost was going to be for us. I think there are 2 other individuals that are looking at doing a rental. Their program is going to work a little differently. Our bikes need to be returned by a specific time, and theirs are going to be rented out of different. They did not seem to feel that our program would be in competition with theirs. In fact, they're helping us identify bike racks so that we can also purchase and set up bike racks along the downtown so they can secure the bikes from our.
And if we talk to Martha's, I know they have some monitors on their bikes.
So the reason they gave us, or that we got their bikes so cheap, is because the software platform that these particular bikes is no longer being supported. They got new bikes with new software where they go and just kind of swipe their own little card on there to pay for their rental. But that's not available with ours. Ours is going to have to be kind of old school. People actually check out the bike.
Yeah, I'll tell you, the large cities where they have bike rental programs, getting rid of them because people just park the bikes and walk away. And all the residents are going nuts because they have 3 or 4 bikes just parked in the corner and no one's going to collect them. So taking them back to a point.
We saw that session that they monitor them. You put them up wherever, then they have a team that comes in at night.
Well, those are the birds. Those are
Yeah,
the
those
scooters.
scooters, yeah.
That's a mess everywhere.
And they're laying them all over the place. I saw them just everywhere down.
And actually, so people sign up to pick them all up, charge them, and they get paid to charge them and then put them back out. But yeah, they're a mess because they're, but the bikes, if you take them with an app, it'll continue to charge you unless you return it to the station. But it has been an issue in other cities, and we're hoping this will work out and that people will return them.
So the screen that the vision of the lecture program is, it's another means of people to get off of their cars, get our life, and go to city and enjoy. Parking. There'll be a designated parking.
So we'll be parking at the visitor center to pick up the bike.
At the visitor center. Adequate parking for them. Second, when the street survey is done, we can look forward to bike paths.
When we get to a full study, and we get public input, we can talk about some kind of sharrows or bike lanes. In the Corridor 67 study, it did come up, and because of the amount of space available right now on E and on Holland, that would probably be a dangerous thing to do. But they could do an alternate and cover the cost for us to put a bike lane, maybe like Solrox, or maybe on Murphy that runs the lane. They have a program and program plans to do that on our behalf. That would be an alternate. And then our own, we could figure out, we'd have to figure out our own.
Will there be a fee place for the use of that?
Don't try to go up the mountain because you're going to want one.
Okay, any more discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed, like sign, motion carries. Okay, city council member comments. Start with you.
Thanks for coming out. It was a great meeting.
Good meeting, thanks for coming, see you next month.
And thanks for coming, thanks for the comments during the public hearings.
Yes, sir, thank you all very much, and we will see you in 2 weeks. Yes, ma'am. Saturday.
The logo, get back there.
You want to talk about it? You know more about it.
Well,
Yeah.
I propose pursuant to Texas Government Code 55-1.071 consultation and training on that, which is duty of the city manager of the Texas disciplinary rules of professional conduct conflict with this chapter requires discussion by an closed session that receive feedback from the independent city management consultant, consider all issues brought forward to city council and or deliberate before the city.
Okay. Okay, motion made second. All those in favor, any discussion? Yeah, we're gonna take a look at that. Yes. Okay, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Always like something. What that is, 7:15. 7:15. Okay, on this way, so that's good. Okay, I'm going. Yeah.
Actually,